All right, so it says we're live, but are we actually live? Let's see if it comes up on my screen on my phone. Just waiting for the show to actually start. There's always that little bit of a delay. There we go. All right, we're going. All right, so here we are again with another Masters of the Universe Origins unboxing, and this is the Masters of the Universe X Stranger Things Hordak versus Hellfire-Man. Yeah, we got the upside down going on again. So don't be mistaken. Don't be fooled by the sinister appearance of this character. Hellfire-Man is indeed a heroic warrior, as you shall soon see when I read the back of this package. But yeah, I got the typical exploding red rocks over the blue starry background for Masters of the Universe. Got the upside down for Stranger Things. Over here we got Hordak sitting in his throne, casting an evil spell. Over here we've got Hellfire-Man, and he is a heroic warrior. And there he is on the back with Hordak. And it almost looks like they're working together. Maybe the artist thought they were supposed to be working together. And I think there's some confusion as far as some of the accessories go, as far as what's supposed to go with whom. I don't know. But here's what the little bio on the back says. Upside Down Eternia. Hordak invades the Upside Down in his quest to dominate every realm. He did not expect the living embodiment of the Hellfire Club, Hellfire-Man, to defend the Upside Down from evil intruders. See, he's a good guy. Blue Shadow the Hedgehog is here and says, "Oh my gosh, I know who that is. It's Ellen. Hi, Alan. Beautiful day, isn't it?" That's not too bad. Seems kind of warm, unseasonably warm. But then again, the weather's always kind of crazy around here, isn't it? Oh, by the way, Hordak is a glow-in-the-dark figure. So let me have my flashlight ready, because we're going to have some fun with that. And then here it's got... See, this is what I'm talking about. It shows Hellfire-Man holding this flaming sword, but on the back, it definitely has that as one of Hordak's weapons, and it's packed onto the side with Hordak. Or at least the sword itself is packed onto the side with Hordak, and the flames are packed onto the side with Hellfire-Man. So I don't know if they even know who's supposed to get what. It says, put Hellfire sword or mace into hand, twist and turn into powerful battle positions. All right, so let's go ahead and open these guys up. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I previously opened up the two other Stranger Things Masters of the Universe packs with the Demogorgon versus Skeletor, and Vecna versus He-Man. And I remember thinking at the time that if they did a third one of these, it would be really cool to see Hordak versus the Hellfire Club mascot. Like, actually turn that into a character. And lo and behold, that's actually what they did. The Trash Picture Show 1814 is here and says, "Are you going to do the TMNT? Are you going to get the TMNT GI Joe crossover figures?" I am definitely intending on getting those. I think those look like a lot of fun. I think I'd have a lot of fun talking about them on the show, and they look like they'd be fun additions to my collections. I already have some things I want to say about those, but we'll wait for the figures to actually come out. So we'll get Hordak out first, and of course he's got just all these rubber tabs that are just in annoying spots. Now, longtime viewers of the show might remember I was never able to get the basic Hordak figure. That was one that had eluded me. But I was able to get... It's around here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. Buzzsaw Hordak. So we've got him on hand. And we can compare him with Buzzsaw Hordak at least. And I think that'll be good enough as far as figuring out, like, exactly how much he does or does not look like the original Hordak, because Buzzsaw Hordak pretty much looks like the regular Hordak. The Trash Picture Show 1814, pardon my dyslexia, says, just came by your channel, liking what I'm seeing thus far. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I got to get the rest of Hordak out. Is that held in with the rubber tabs? It's held in with rubber tabs for some baffling reason. So we'll go ahead and get that out. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the sword, despite the fact that the flames are on the side of Hellfire-Man, I'm going to go ahead and say that the sword goes with Hordak. Just because Hordak doesn't have any other accessory except for this little glow-in-the-dark imp guy. And I know it's not really supposed to be imp. I know it's supposed to be like some other kind of little critter. But if I was a kid, I would have just said that, oh, that's what imp must look like in the toy. He looks different from what he looks like in the cartoon, but that's typical, isn't it? We oftentimes see the characters looking different on the cartoon versus how they look in the toy. So that wouldn't have been any different. God, his cape is like wedged in here, like really good. I don't even know how they fit this cape in here. So I'm having a hard time getting it out. So we're just going to cut the packaging. We're just going to cut through the packaging. I don't even care. Just try not to cut the cape because I definitely don't want to do that. But we'll cut through the packaging and give that a little extra room. And hopefully then... Nope, it's still caught, isn't it? I guess I didn't cut all the way through. There's a little piece there that I missed. All right. So, the biggest difference, I think, between the way that this guy was originally sculpted, and I do believe that this is the original Hordak sculpt, versus this guy. As you can see, this guy's cape is attached to this device here that's supposed to pop his torso open. Whereas this Hordak, the cape is attached directly into the breastplate. Does not seem to be removable, unfortunately, because I actually liked the way that the cape was removable on the original vintage 80s Hordak figure. Bobby Wald is here, and he says, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are crossing over with too many franchises. I hope that they are using better protection than that shell. I don't know. I think the crossovers are fun. I'm enjoying them. And, you don't have to buy them if you don't like them. So, but I like Ninja Turtles. I like G.I. Joe. I'm looking forward to that line. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, let's see. Okay, so one thing that I wanted to check, because it definitely looked like it was, is that I hope you guys can see this on. It's kind of hard. Maybe let's try that a little lower bit of a. His arms and legs are actually like a translucent blue plastic. So, but it's a very dark translucent blue plastic. It's an interesting choice that they made there. So it is translucent, but it takes some bright light to shine through it. But yeah, but the really cool thing is that he's a glow in the dark figure. So we're gonna use the flashlight to charge up his head a little bit, and you can see my flashlight's bright enough. He glows in the light. And our little impy guy, I think he should probably be glow in the dark too, it looks like. And sure enough, glow in the dark. Very cool. All right. So I'm not sure. It looks like he's supposed to clamp onto something, you see there, but it looks a little narrow to clamp onto his wrist. I might can get it to clamp onto his wrist. We can get it to clamp onto his wrist. So he can kind of perch there on Hordak's gauntlet. So that's kind of cool. Other than that, I'm guessing this guy is going to have pretty much the same. It looks like he has the same articulation that most Masters of the Universe Origins figures have. So we're not going to really get into the articulation on this guy. We're going to talk about the articulation once we get to Hellfire-Man. But the other two Masters of the Universe characters in this set, in this series, Skeletor and He-Man, were both kind of painted like in a more, I don't know if realistic is the right word, but they were painted almost in like the style of like 1980s fantasy art. It reminded me, it looked like they were trying to make it look like a Frank Frazetta kind of look. And that makes sense. Like Stranger Things is to show it takes place in the 80s. Kids are really into Dungeons and Dragons. Those kids are probably like about the right age they would have played with He-Man when they were younger, I think. So yeah, it kind of makes sense to do a more sort of quote unquote realistic version of He-Man, to go along with the strength. And since Stranger Things is a live action show, it all kind of makes sense to me in a weird sort of way. But Hordak does not follow that theme. He's not a more realistically painted version of Hordak, unless you want to count that he's a darker color scheme. You might say that that's more realistic, but you can see rather than the gray that Buzzsaw Hordak has here, he's got, like I said, that dark translucent blue, very glossy. Of course, black is, you can't get much darker than black. Like, how much more black can this be? And the answer is none. None more black. Even the belt looks like a slightly darker silver to me, almost a little more gunmetal. The red's a little more sort of burgundy, a little more crimson, especially the cape. The cape is very burgundy. So this is not the typical color scheme for Hordak. Even on the cartoon where Hordak was blue, it was like kind of a bright, sort of cobalt royal blue. And this is, like I said, dark navy blue. And it's that translucent plastic. It gives it an interesting look, even though I don't think that, the darker color is too optimal for the translucency. Because, like I said, you can't really see through it all that well. But it gives it like an interesting sort of feel. It like the translucent does give it like a different sort of look, even if it's not fully translucent. And since his head is glow in the dark, like most glow in the dark plastics, it's a little more translucent than a typical sort of plastic, just because of the nature of what it is. But it looks to me like this is even more translucent than you might typically see on a glow in the dark type figure. So looking at him next to the Buzzsaw Hordak, which, like I said, is more colored like the original action figure was, you can definitely see there's a difference. And I think the paint job makes this guy worth picking up on his own. So let's go ahead and put the sword in his hand, since we haven't seen that yet. And when I was first looking at it, I was thinking to myself that this sword is like, it's cool that they gave Hordak a sword, but it's kind of like almost sort of generic looking in a way. It doesn't look particularly Hordak-ish, which might have contributed to some of the confusion as to whose weapon this is on the packaging. But to me, it looks an awful lot like something that would have come with some kind of knockoff Masters of the Universe figure from like back in the 80s, like some kind of Remco or Galaxy Warriors or something like that. It seems like it could have come with that. And it does not seem like a weapon that, like, it doesn't quite have that sort of Masters of the Universe aesthetic to it. Now, what does make it a little more unique, and like I said, this is in the Hellfire-Man side for whatever reason. I guess they just only had so much room for so many accessories on each side. But the flames on the sword do make it a little bit more sort of Masters of the Universe to me. Anyway, I think that's a really cool weapon. And if you wanted to give this weapon to Hellfire-Man, you totally could. And it seems like it would be a good weapon for him, too. But like I said, most of the accessories in this actually go to Hellfire-Man. The only accessory that I know absolutely goes to Hordak is the little imp guy. This guy absolutely is a Hordak accessory. And both the sword and the flames, I kind of figured those are a little more ambiguous as to who they're supposed to go with. So I'm going to go ahead and give mine to Hordak, just so he has some kind of weapon. All right. So speaking of Hellfire-Man, let's go ahead and get this guy out of the package. Now, the first accessory he comes with, and this is a really cool accessory, is he comes with a hand doing the horns of the devil. That's really cool. So, anybody who's a fan of classic 80s heavy metal, you know all about the horns of the devil. And it wasn't that long ago that we actually saw these with another action figure, was it? Because we opened up Rock and Roll, and it should still be here on my desk, hopefully. Yeah, when we opened up Rock and Roll, he also had a hand that was doing the devil horns. But I don't see where it is right now. Hopefully I didn't drop it in the floor. So if I dropped it in the floor, I might never see it again. Is that? No, it's a pointing hand. Pointing hand. Well, hell, I got this Rock and Roll over here already, and he's still got the hand on there. So, yeah. Got the G.I. Joe version of the devil horns, and got the Stranger Things / Masters Universe version of the devil horns. And Ninja Turtles, unfortunately, can't do devil horns, or they're already doing devil horns naturally, or one or the other. I don't know. You be the judge. But yeah, the devil horns, I like those. That's a cool accessory. And then, like, unlike the sword, which I could see you using as a Hellfire-Man accessory, but it could just as easily be a Hordak accessory, his other two accessories are going to be just pure Hellfire-Man. You'll see what I'm talking about once I get those out of the package. Of course, you've already seen them as I was holding up the package, but we're going to talk about them some more once I get them out of the package anyway. So let me go ahead. I'll get the figure out first, because it seems like that's going to make it easier to get his other weapon, at least this one other weapon out of here. All right, so I think that's all the tabs that are holding this guy in. Hopefully, go ahead and get him out. So there is Hellfire-Man out of the package. And he is a sinister-looking dude, but trust me, he's a good guy. We read that on the package, didn't we? We're going to get back to him in a minute. Then I want to get out his guitar. Comes with a guitar. And I kind of figure this figure also... he's also kind of a tribute to the Eddie Munson character. And I mentioned before when I was talking about Stranger Things X Masters Universe X Stranger Things, however you want to put that, how, like, I kind of felt like it was an appropriate tie-in, because, like I'd mentioned earlier in this episode, even, not only is it appropriate, because I kind of felt like the Stranger Things kids would have been about the right age that they probably would have played with Masters Universe when they were younger. But also, I don't even know what that was. Something fell off of here. Oh, well, whatever. I got all the accessories out, so I can't think of anything else it would be. But also the kind of one of the themes on the last season of Stranger Things was that whole satanic panic thing, which 80s kids will probably remember. And heavy metal music was, of course, the brunt of a lot of that criticism, and Dungeons and Dragons was the brunt of a lot of that criticism. Of course, the Hellfire Club played Dungeons and Dragons, and you can see like with the Demogorgon, he's got a weapon that's made to look like a 20-sided die, an homage to that. So that's got to be a Hellfire-Man weapon, doesn't it? And then the guitar again for the heavy metal music. And Masters of the Universe itself was the victim of a lot of criticism during the Satanic Panic. And you can, I'd mentioned this on the previous time I talked about Stranger Things X Masters Universe. You can actually go on YouTube. Do it once you're done watching this video, obviously. But you can go on YouTube right now. It's called Deception of a Generation. It's this whole video with these televangelists talking about how evil Masters of the Universe is, and other toy lines at the time, like other cartoons, like Smurfs and things like that. And they'll have things like how Gargamel is doing some kind of like ritual to get the Smurfs, and talking about how the ritual is satanic. And I'm like, well, Gargamel's a bad guy. You're not supposed to want to be like Gargamel. Skeletor's a bad guy. We're not supposed to root for Skeletor. I mean, granted, he was my favorite character, but that doesn't mean I rooted for him. I definitely wanted to see him get defeated. But, you know, Skeletor is one of those characters, like, he's more fun when he gets defeated. You know what I mean? So, anyway, let's look at the Hellfire-Man figure himself. So, obviously, it's a new head sculpt, sculpted to look like the Hellfire Club mascot. Looks really cool. I don't remember if these are the same bracers that we saw on some of the Thundercats figures. I think the only one that I have over here is Panthro, and I think I took his bracers off. Yeah. So yeah, these might be the same ones that we saw on Thundercats a lot of times. I don't remember. We have Triclops' vest, Triclops' armor, but in an odd decision, this is not the Triclops armor from the Origins figure. This is the Triclops armor from the Classics figure. Now, technically, it does fit on him, even though it's a little loose around the waist. I think you can see how it's kind of loose there, and it doesn't quite want to grasp the entire torso like it does with the Classics version. But it still fits on him pretty well, and you can see he's got the little throwing daggers sculpted in, just like how Triclops had that. And he's got the little space for Triclops' sword, even though he doesn't come with Triclops' sword. But I suppose if you did want to use this flaming sword as a weapon for Hellfire-Man, hey, he's got storage for it. So for those of you saying, no, that should be Hellfire-Man weapon, well, there's a little piece of ammunition for your quiver there, as far as that argument goes. But I kind of feel like this guy already has two accessories that are definitely bespoke to him, and these are new accessories designed for this character. So, and he's got while he's got two gripping hands on the actual figure, he's also got the extra hand, like I said, with the devil horns. They can't hold anything. So, you know, ideally, like the most you're going to be able to put in this character's hands is two things. And, you know, if you want to give him with the devil horns, that's gonna cut it down even further. But the mace, you see, holds that really well, and it's got a real, well, it's a plastic chain, but it's still like an actual, it's a flail. So there's that. And the guitar, while it is kind of got like a little bit of a shape there at the stock, so that obviously he can hold it. And if you really want to have him with like a two-handed grip, he can kind of grip the grip that bar there also. So you can kind of have him hold on to it with two hands, even though like you don't actually hold on to a guitar by that. I forget what that lever's called. I'm not like a guitar expert, but yeah, that still looks pretty cool. So, and if we want to give him the devil horns, you can hold it the other way too. I don't even remember which way is the right hand way or which way is the left hand way, but ideally you should be able to have him just kind of hold it by the stock. It would have been nice if they had to put a guitar strap onto it. I do like it when guitars on action figures have guitar straps, but a lot of the times they just kind of avoid that, unfortunately. But there's that. And we can go ahead and give them the devil horns. Try to be really careful not to drop that wristband when I plug these in. Take out the one hand and put in the other. And there we go. Rock and roll. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about the articulation some. Hellfire-Man can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side, rotate the head all the way around, across the arms, rotate all the way around the shoulders. By the way, I think I forgot to mention this, the shoulder armor obviously comes from Beastman, but I'm pretty sure, again, this is the Classics Beastman armor. It's not, and we since Demogorgon has it, you can see it's not the same armor that the Origins Beastman comes with, like Demogorgon. It's this spikier. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that's the one from Classics. I don't have Classics on hand to compare it right now, but I'm pretty sure that's what that is. So the arms rotate all the way around the shoulders, although they're going to kind of bump into the armor. The arms raise up to the sides about this far, but again, they're kind of bumping into the armor. He's got a lot of armor between the Triclops armor and the Beastman armor. He's just got a lot of armor. Got a single joint at the elbow, bends in about that far. That rotates all the way around. I should mention that Hellfire-Man has some kind of light orange. He's kind of like a reddish orange kind of color, similar to what we saw on Snout Spout. But he's got like a lighter orange overspray on the middle of his back and on his forearms and on his thighs. He actually has a little bit more of that fantasy painting look like I was talking about. I guess since they didn't use as much paint application on Hordak, they were able to use it on Hellfire-Man. And also, they did a really good job with the paint on the face, I should say, with the black circles around the eyes and the white teeth and the black inside the mouth and these grayish horns. Very cool. He's got the same color belt as Hordak, that kind of little slightly dark, almost gunmetal kind of silver, and then his trunks are like a very light gray. Hellfire-Man can kick up about that far. He can do the splits no problem. He's got a single joint of articulation at the knee, and that rotates all the way around, and it bends up about that far. And then he's got a boot cut that rotates all the way around. Foot points down about that far, foot points up about that far, and then the foot rotates all the way around. And mostly his body is the same as He-Man's, although I believe I didn't actually take off. I was careful not to let it fall on the ground, but underneath he's got plain forearms like we saw on the WWE figures a lot. So I do like the removable bracers. I always think that that's a nice touch. Whenever you can get some removable bracers, it's good for customizers like me, so we can have those extra parts. But as cool as the Hordak figure is, and that is a really cool Hordak figure, make no mistake, I do love this Hordak figure. Hellfire-Man, and this is something you hear me say a lot, but it could not possibly be more literal in the case of Hellfire-Man. Hellfire-Man is the rock star of this set. I mean, he literally comes with like devil horns and a guitar. Like, you don't get much more rock star than that. He's cool as hell. And the fact that this guy is a heroic warrior, not an evil warrior, a heroic warrior, to me, that just makes him a little bit more cool and a little bit more special, because I always say that the coolest figures in the original line were the bad guys. You know, we liked the bad guys. And, yeah, we loved He-Man. He was a great hero, and we rooted for him. You know, Man-at-Arms, Tila, they were really cool. But honestly, those were the main good guys that I played with. I probably would have played with Sorceress if she had been available earlier on in the line, but I was kind of out of the line by the time she finally came along. And, you know, there was some other cool heroic warriors, too, that I'd play with, you know, from time to time. But not to the extent that I would play with those main three. Like, it was He-Man, Tila, and Man-at-Arms. That was my trio. But the bad guys, man, I loved the bad guys. And one of the things that was most brilliant about the Evil Horde was the fact that it gave you a whole new faction of bad guys, so that you could have the bad guys fight other bad guys. And like I said, all the bad guys were usually the coolest figures. Hellfire-Man looks like a bad guy. And that's what makes him cool. Is that this will be a guy you would imagine him hanging out with Skeletor or Hordak. And instead, he should be a guy hanging out with He-Man, because he's a guy who fights against evil. He's a good guy. He's a good guy who looks like a villain, and people don't trust him based on his own appearance, which not only kind of fits in with the Eddie Munson thing and about how people had negative assumptions about this kid when he was really a good kid, based on his heavy metal kind of look and his fondness for Dungeons and Dragons and Metallica and all that kind of stuff. But also I kind of feel like it fits in with that sort of Masters of the Universe. In today's story, we learned that we don't judge a book by its cover. And just because Hellfire-Man looks kind of sinister doesn't mean that he wasn't a man with a heart of gold. And we would have missed out on a true friend if we had have judged Hellfire-Man based on his appearance. And then you'd be punishing yourself just as much as him. That's all for today. Bye for now. And that's the kind of thing they would do on Filmation. If Hellfire-Man was a character that existed back then, if they would actually have a character named Hellfire-Man on a children's cartoon in the 80s. That's probably how they would have done him. Anyway, great figure. I love this figure. This is one of those where, like I say, with like the Masters of the Universe crossover figures, is I kind of feel like if it's a character that was just created whole cloth, and this goes for all three of the Stranger Things figures that we've gotten with Demogorgon and Vecna. I kind of feel like if any of these three were created in the 1980s for the Masters of the Universe line, they would have just fit right in. Despite there being tie-ins to a hit Netflix show that just ended. And I'm pretty sure that's why they were holding on to this third set, which came out way after the first two sets. They were probably holding on to it so they could release it at the time that they put out the series finale, the final season, Stranger Things 5, which I still have not seen yet. So I need to get on that. But I'm really happy with how Hellfire-Man turned out. I think that out of all of these Stranger Things figures, he's my favorite. I really like this one. And he's going to be a great addition to my heroic warriors. What if Eddie Munson was reborn in the form of Hellfire-Man and found himself on Eternia and actually did become friends with He-Man and the rest of the gang? Wouldn't that be something? So anyway, that's it for Hellfire-Man versus Hordak. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. YouTube likes it when I say like and subscribe, so I like to say like and subscribe. They take this video and push it out there into the algorithm so more people can see it and more people can like and subscribe, and they'll hear me say like and subscribe, and then more people will like and subscribe because of that. Please leave a comment. I like it when you leave comments. Like I said, I haven't seen the latest season of Stranger Things, but I don't mind if you get too spoilery. If you got something that I need to go ahead and get caught up on that. I still even watch the previous season of Stranger Things. I'm way behind. But yeah, I need to get caught up on that show, definitely. But that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye. And if I can get to the end stream button, there we go.